Well, 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 you have finally got here. You are listening to the Erskine Music Podcast. Here, by popular demand, we discuss life, culture, Christ, and of course, music. These half-hour broadcasts are perfect for a commute, coffee time, chat, or any other gap in your schedule where you want to put great content. So without further ado, let's join
John,
the conversation
Daily
today,
Theology.
already in progress.
Fireworks, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're here once again.
Yeah, we're back. Don't call it a comeback.
Well, I love it when you're on the show because you always bring some clarity to some issues that may be a little bit fuzzy around the corners. You helped us kind of adjudicate and understand more about Roman Catholic theology as it relates to Roman Catholic theology and evangelicalism, Mormonism, the cult and evil cult of Mormonism versus Christianity. Now you're going to help us process some of what's going on with the Charlie KIRK situation, and we're thankful that you are here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Charlie KIRK.
And you've been doing this on your own show, and so maybe if we could begin today, I want to start with some of your own words, and you could respond to what you've already said. In case there's somebody that hasn't already subscribed to Daily Theology, please go ahead and subscribe to his channel. In fact, he has a lot of incredible videos on theology and in certain areas that I think are worth hearing and sharing. And so I'm going to play a little clip from you, John, the 10 Seconds to Live, which I thought was really clever. And you see John and you see John, and now you're about to hear.
This seems like one of those mirror things.
Yeah.
So if you have 10 seconds to live, here's what Charlie KIRK would say.
What would you actually want to tell me if I have 30 seconds left to live?
Boy, you got 30 seconds. In 30 seconds, you're about to meet eternal judgment. And there's only one way that you can get bailed out of that. And it's not all the good things you did or the moral scorecard. It's whether or not you have Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. And that's the only thing that's going to matter. And so you got 10 seconds left. You're dying from a gunshot wound. And you ask the question, who is Jesus Christ? And the answer to that singular question, who is Jesus Christ, is the most important question for everyone in the audience. Not how much money you have, not how much good stuff you do. It is, who is Jesus Christ? You might say, oh, Jesus was, a teller of good tales, or Jesus was a good person, or Jesus was a historical figure. None of that's going to cut it. It's whether or not you repent and you ask Christ to come in as your Lord and Savior. That's the only thing that will save you from eternal.
So it's pretty strong stuff. That is what Charlie believed. And people say, well, he was too political. And again, here's Frank TUREK explaining who was there, was right next to him, people thought was involved, which was really a strange side note. But here's Frank explaining Charlie's philosophy of politics.
Okay, before we get to this, have you and Frank TUREK made friends yet?
You know what? It's funny. First of all, I think that video was from Living Waters because he was a fan of the Stop Asking Jesus Into Your Heart, The Myth of the Modern Message, I think was the book that he had. Either way, he liked Ray Comfort. And so Living Waters posted that clip of him because Ray would often ask, I've got 10 seconds to live. I'm dying. What do you tell me? To find out what people believe. And so it's a really good question that Charlie picked up and then used and then ironically applied to him and then posthumously, if you will, kind of explains what he was about. Frank TUREK and I have not made up. In fact, today's video was big, huge mistake by Frank TUREK, and he would agree from his memorial ceremony. So you'll have to go check that video out. I'm not going to ruin it for you. I'm not going to tell you what it is. But he would agree.
Yeah.
And I think you would agree that he made a mistake. But he did a great job, but there was a huge mistake there. So no, we have not made
Okay, yeah, let's tease that. And there's some folks who said they are subscribing now to your channel. And so.
Oh, okay, great.
All right.
So with Charlie KIRK, what's your question there?
Well, the first thing that I wanted to know is how does this land on you? Because I watched in my prep, and I'm going to do like part 2 of this, which will be pre-recorded Thursday's episode because I'll be traveling with the band. But I watched Erica Kirk's memorialization of her husband, and there were some emotional parts to it. And I know that you and I have discussed before you're kind of a robot. And so get just the facts, just the facts. But is there a part of this that is an emotional tug for you, or are you just, how do you process this? That was one of my main burning questions is your ups are not super up, your downs are not super down. You're pretty constant in your commitment to Christ, but that doesn't always come through on the emotional side of things. And you've remarked to me that sometimes your emotions are a little bit lagging.
Yeah, it was strange. I actually watched
Did you cry?
the video of the assassination,
Oh,
and I watched it closely because I was like, "What do bad people do?" And everyone was like, "Oh, it's horrific, and I'll never be the same." And I was like, "It." I mean, what do you expect? Like, it was a act of violence. I don't know. People look at surgeries all the time, and they don't come away from that. So it's strange how we process violence, first of all, and maybe I'm goofy with it. I don't, not that I wanted to see it, but like as it was happening, people were like, what happened? And then
hmm,
they showed the clips and stuff, and they were trying to figure out if he had armor on that it deflected. So I was trying to watch and see like what happened. I don't know, the medical stuff definitely like creeps me out where I don't do well with it, but it also like yeah, this was a horrific act of violence.
yeah.
So I don't know what people are expecting to see, or how violence happens. Like I think with
Do
the
you,
amount of violence in
yeah.
movies that people are around, I'm surprised that people still have any sensitivity to violence at all in our culture, to be honest with you.
Do you think that it
Emotionally,
was important
oh, go
to?
ahead.
Do you think that it was important to have that viewed so frequently by people? Do you think it was important to
No,
have
no,
a?
no, no. I don't think it was good.
Because
I
I've
don't.
not seen it. So, all
Yeah,
full
no, I.
disclosure, I didn't watch it at all. When I heard that you could actually watch the gunshot and how it penetrated his neck or his head or something, I thought there's absolutely no way in the world I want to watch that. Because now, to your point, John, we're not just talking about a situation where people are playing video games or it's movie violence that's out there or Batman's going to get the guys, but this is an actual human being whose life was ended, and people are watching this and commenting on it, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I don't think people should. I don't think kids should per se. I think, but we've already crossed this bridge. Like when
Hmm.
we were talking about movies and the impact they have on people, and even songs. I called you last week about that, and the violence that's out there is beyond what happened to Charlie Kirk. Okay,
Yeah.
it's beyond what's happened to him. Like things you could watch in World War II movies, Saving Private Ryan, movies that have been around for a long time. The level of violence that's on in movies is way more gory. Not, I'm not trying to minimize. It's a horrible thing. I'm just saying we live in a culture of death, and it's
Hmm.
all around us. And so I was trying to figure out if it deflected off his like body. I was just trying to figure out what happened to him. Um, but that being said,
Can I ask another
emotionally,
question?
yeah, yeah.
Um, do you think that, just staying with this thread of how important was it for people to see this? I understand, like I couldn't do it, and there's some folks who are commenting that they couldn't watch it either. But do you think it's important in an age of conspiracy theory that people actually saw it so that they know that it actually happened?
That is exactly why I watched it, because
Okay.
there's going to
Okay.
be so many people, even now, they're saying what happened, what didn't happen. There was a
Hmm.
guy under the stage, there was a guy over here. All of that, that's kind of the era we live in. And that is why I think they have eyewitnesses. And as Christians, a lot of our belief is based on a supernatural confidence in the eyewitness testimony of people that
Hmm.
saw something far worse than Charlie Kirk, which was the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. It was way
Yes.
worse than this. It was agony. It was meant to be a public spectacle. Likely, he didn't even have clothes on. He'd been whipped and mocked and spit on, and they were mocking him still. I mean, whatever level of scorn we saw for people kind of celebrating this after it happened, the celebration over Jesus being crucified was worse. And that's probably a video I should have done, honestly. But
Well, you
it's
can tease. Maybe
worse.
John is going to do a video on comparative hate between Charlie Kirk and Jesus.
Yeah, because Jesus was perfect. I mean, and what happened to Charlie Kirk? You asked, did it affect me? What it did was it made me mad. and it
Okay.
made me mad to want to go reach more people. In one of the videos, I said injustice is like jet fuel, and that was kind of my takeaway.
Hmm.
It can motivate you to become a bitter, old, angry curmudgeon, self-righteous too, or it can motivate you to do the thing that God commands us to do, which is to love our enemies.
Hmm.
It's to preach the gospel. It's to make disciples. It's to be bold. In fact, in the book of Acts, the constant theme over and over is they prayed for boldness, and the word of God increased.
Right.
Increased. So, boldness, I think, is the measure of the day, and perseverance. And like you said, leading up to this, it's a long term battle. We have to keep our eyes on the next 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years and beyond. And Christians need to be builders. That's the thing about Charlie Kirk that Trump even
Oh, that's
mentioned.
good.
He was a builder. He was building something that will outlast him and probably outlast all of us. And we need to be builders.
That's a great point, John. Stay with that for just a second, because I think that, you built something here in Nashville that survives your time in Nashville, at least. The Together for Evangelism Conference, the T4E. If you ever hear about that in Nashville, it's an evangelism conference that happens usually once a year. This last year was in the spring. Ben Grady has been faithful to take that over since you left. But that was something that you and I talked about years ago, that evangelists need to have a platform, or at least a place where we could gather, receive information, receive encouragement, and then go out and do the work in the fields. And so you have always been in a position of building organizations, building others. How important is that when we think about our lives and the scope of our lives and the importance of what the outflow of our life should be?
Well, to that point, I think one of the things the Charlie Kirk thing should emphasize to all of us, and I was telling Benjamin this the other day, you need to have your 3 people, your 4 people that are your people that you pour into. And like Spurgeon said, your family is first. But when you're discipling people, you want faithful people that are teachable, that are like-minded, that are motivated, that aren't people you always have to go prod and say, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" People that are self-starters, and
Yeah.
that's where I think the lesson in all of this really is
The fat
pour
people.
into those people, not just the needy people. Okay, needy people will monopolize
Faithful,
your time.
available, teachable, by the way.
Yeah, the fat thing.
Yeah.
But needy people will monopolize all your time, and that's why I'm grateful for you, because you're out there doing stuff, and Ben is trying to do stuff, and other people like Jamie Terry out there doing stuff, leading a church now. Those are people that I want to invest into and spend time with, not the people that are like, "Oh, what was me?" And every time it's a problem. Now, as an elder slash pastor in our church, it's not trying to be mean to those people. Like, obviously, I love them, but there's a level of looking for people that are disciple making disciplers, that are leaders. And I think not everyone should be a leader. Not everyone wants to be a leader. Often, if you're trying to be a leader, you're probably not a leader. You're probably just cosplaying, as they would say, the kids would
Oh,
say,
man.
to be a leader. Like, leaders just lead. They don't look for the title. They're not looking for the position. They're not looking for the accolades. They're scrubbing toilets. They're doing things that people don't recognize. And they have a vision for where things need to go,
Uh-huh.
not where things currently are. There's a little bit of discontentment that always motivates me. I'm always like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. That's kind of how I always like, this is dumb. And I know you're not supposed to say that as Christians. We're supposed to see the positives of everything. But I see
Yeah, you
problems.
broke the 11th commandment.
Yeah,
Thou
make people
shalt be
uncomfortable.
nice.
Yeah, I know it's true, but taking that, recognizing, okay, what can we do to make things better? And to me, the only thing that's ever made sense with the Charlie Kirk thing, with everything, which was his motivation for life, like a William Wilberforce, was the gospel. It was evangelism, and that's really the mark I think that we need to look for. Frank Turek in his clip said, "Make God known, live for His glory. Make Him known." That's really what we're shooting for here, is the Great Commission, which
Mhm.
includes our families, includes our neighbors, but more than that is just a bold declaration of the truth. William Wilberforce was guided by 2 main principles. He wanted to see a reformation of manners, and he wanted to abolish the slave trade, the
Mhm.
East Indian Company there. And he did those things with great difficulty in a political position, much like Charlie Kirk. And I think the error of our day is where we become apolitical. But I don't see how the gospel cannot affect your
Hmm.
view that abortion is murder, that
Yeah.
this gender dysphoria stuff is evil. It has to affect the people around you, and it's going to come into conflict with those areas.
Well, that certainly gives a sense of why people enjoy this show. Very engaging, very heartfelt. We will return to the conversation in a few moments, but first, let's thank our sponsors, Life Action Ministries, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and you for all your awesome support. And Holt International. Thanks so much to our partners who make such a difference.
Thanks, Jason. Hi, I'm Dawn.
And I'm Steve of Don and Steve Plus. We're a podcast, and if you've not checked it out, I hope you'll do that. You can visit our website. It is donandsteveplus.com, or you can find us wherever you get your podcasts.
We do hope that you'll be able to join us, even as you continue to follow Erskine Music. Erskine does such a great job of bringing out topics. They're not all easy.
Right. I love that he'll tackle just about any topic.
He will tackle any topic and invite you to the conversation, which is always a plus because learning the art of conversation, well, it's much needed.
It certainly is. And he does a great job with those conversations. So, Erskine, thanks for doing that. Thanks for tackling those tough topics. And thanks for listening to the Erskine Music Show.
All right, let's get back to the show. This is where it gets good.
Sorry, I'm sliding out of my chair here today.
So
I want you to stay with the thread here for just a second. In the question, I think Al Mohler maybe rightly wanted to strain at a definition for this, but was Charlie Kirk assassinated in the sense that we would look at like a Martin Luther King, some civil figure or political figure? Well, certainly we could say that, but beyond that, was he a martyr in the sense of someone like a Jim Elliot?
Well,
Who
I
would
actually
have given his life for the cause of Christ. Do you consider Charlie Kirk to be a martyr?
Yes, I had this exact conversation, and I can understand
I had
why
it today.
people would say no. We're very careful. We don't want to give out the title martyr for people that we don't think measure up to our view of missions. Okay, in our view, only a missionary can be martyred. But there was a guy a few years ago preaching on a corner. Maybe last year, 2 years ago, somebody just shot him in the head. He should have died. He miraculously survived. That guy was a martyr. Charlie Kirk, right before this happened,
Bishop Marmar?
the Mormons were saying, "We're Mormons. Why are you here? You're a Christian." And then he explained the gospel. And then
And the Mormons shot him?
So to
Where was this at,
guard
in
the
Utah?
martyr term, you have to know Charlie's motives and heart. And the more that I've looked into what people who know him have said about him, because I wasn't a big fan of Charlie Kirk. I wasn't watching his stuff, not in the sense that I disagreed with him or stuff like that. I just, not really my thing, like for the political connection. But the more that people who knew him spoke about him, Frank TUREK, who was an apologist, his wife said he would want to forgive him. He would forgive him. If that doesn't silence all the hate and negativity towards him and wondering, that's not a political position, Erskine. It's not
Right.
a political position. Also, the gospel is political. Jesus was crucified for political reasons. In case anyone isn't paying attention, that is 100% why he was crucified. Also for blasphemy and claiming to be God. Daniel 7:13-15, but it was a political problem that they took care of politically. And Charlie Kirk was a Christian active in the political sphere that I would say, in my opinion, and I wouldn't get mad if somebody disagreed, but he was a martyr. And the question is, why not call him a martyr? What are we afraid of? Like, what are we holding that title for? Who are we holding that back to protect if he wasn't a martyr?
Yeah, and that's a really great discussion. And in fact, there's a lot of folks who are tuning in on this. Thank you, Isaac, for typing a lot on this subject matter that we're discussing today. I think, John, to your point, there's a lot of people who want to see, like, if he was up there preaching the gospel and the last word out of his mouth was Jesus, like we're quick to say, okay, he was a martyr. But because there were some political opinions and views that maybe we could agree or disagree with, that may or may not necessarily relate to one's salvation, we're a little bit more hesitant to say, yeah, he was definitely a martyr. He was on a mission for Christ. But every video that I've seen of him, um, he will double down on the fact that not only is he a follower of Christ, but he's doing what he's doing to reach people to be followers of Christ, to repent of their sins, to put their trust in Jesus, to live a life that glorifies him. And so I would call him a martyr. I would call him a martyr in the same way. And I'm glad that you mentioned the name William Wilberforce, in the same way that had someone come up to William Wilberforce and just stabbed him out before he got the slave trade abolished, I would have considered him to be a martyr as well.
Yeah, I mean, think about and the exclamation point on this thing. I watched a lot of, if not most of, the memorial service, which was about 3 hours once they really started going.
Okay.
Everything was it was gospel. It is well with my soul. Great is thy faithfulness. I think. I
Mhm.
think even his
Gratitude.
wife went up to a Getty song. I mean, it was just the instrumental part, but everything was about Jesus. And so, if that was a political guy, boy, I sure wouldn't have gotten it from watching his eulogy and memorial service. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And 100 million people, maybe more, saw that. What an incredible impact! And it should give us great encouragement for the fact that there are a lot of people asking these questions, because ultimately this has to do with epistemology and anthropology. How do you know what you know? Okay, and that's where these colleges and universities are totally wrapped around the axle. And you and I have been there. We've preached at these places. They're
Hmm.
hostile environments. They've probably gotten worse. I don't know. Since I've been to them, I used to go every week. But how do you know what you know? And then what is the nature of man? And on both counts, it's a different religion. This is not some guy that was religious killed by someone that wasn't religious. This is two religions coming into conflict and one weaponizing death to stop the advancement of truth.
Hmm. This is Isaac, who is saying that there's a demonic attack on revival that's taking place in the nation. Do I believe that we are all allowed to have a difference of opinion, though? I don't think anybody should be shot for their opinion differing. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Wait.
think opinions are one thing. I think there is a time for justice in Romans 13, which was used so eloquently during the lockdowns. It applies here, where you are threatening people with death and encouraging death. But because of the way that it's this guy says part, you say the other part, and we know that 1 + 1 is 2, and then it's like, well, it's free speech. It's time for people to have some repercussions for supporting a cold-blooded murderer. I mean, there is a big difference between somebody saying, I believe in multiple genders and blah, 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 versus celebrating the murder of a person, like an actual murder, and encouraging that to continue. And I think that's kind of where we're at as a cultural moment
I was going to
with
ask that.
Jimmy Kimmel and those types of things. I don't blame him, but I think he's back. I don't blame him for firing him. Are we trying to get you kicked off YouTube? We might be on our way here. But, what he said was just, there's a time where you just don't say anything. When big things happen and you're not really sure, it's best to just wait for the facts to come out. That's where wisdom is shown. And when people just jump in, and clearly this person, who I believe they do have, was standing up for gender dysphoria. That was his motive, that he wrote in his own hands on the bullet casings, etc. I don't think there's any doubt that he was anti-Christian, anti-Charlie Kirk. Like, this was not some guy saying, Charlie, you're not going hard enough in the paint. What? Like, that is the most
I love that.
condescending, crazy take. And many people parroted that. In fact, when it first happened, one of the guys, we don't need to say who, I don't even know his name, but he was like, it was probably one of his supporters just excitedly shooting off his, and like, did you hit your head? Like, how is this happening? And so
Yeah.
all this discussion, giving Charlie the title of martyr, I think it really is concerned with self-preservation. If I admit that we are being martyred as Christians for public evangelism, well, now I don't feel safe. So I'm going to say this was another category. I can put him over here, and
Yeah.
now I know that nobody would bother me over here in this other bucket. Do you think that's accurate?
Well, I was going to ask you, I was calibrating the question, but I do think that that's pretty accurate. I do think that there is a certain sense in which people speaking, having the freedom of speech, the freedom to differ, the freedom of opinion, should maybe be tempered by actual. See, this is the largest response that I ever got, and this is funny that you mentioned this, but the largest response that I ever got on any show, on any platform, was a response that I had to Candace Owen when Candace Owen was just blasting George Floyd. And a lot of things that she was saying were true. Like, it was true. But my question was it appropriate in its time, in its scope, and its scale? And that was what I questioned. Well, I mean, people lit me up for days for how true it was at what she was saying. But just because something is true doesn't mean you just need to hammer down in the moment where you may not have all the facts. It just assumes a certain level of arrogance. And I called Candace, I mean, I didn't talk to her personally, but I, in my view, called Candace Owen out on that sort of thing. And I think that you're right, John. Those that were speaking out of turn and saying, well, it was people just shooting off guns, and there it is, and Jimmy Kimmel and all the people. Maybe that's not the time for you to talk and take a hard slant for that. And I'm not trying to eliminate or invalidate people's freedom of speech or freedom of opinion. They can differ. But there is a certain, I think, cultural appropriateness to what it is that we're speaking about. And obviously, other people believe that, or he wouldn't have gotten fired.
So out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks, and wisdom is justified by her children. And if you look at speech that leads to death and lies, it's not the same as speech that is truth and life and forgiving and grace. And say what you want about the whole Republican Party and everything there, and assume maybe it was all a show. I don't think that, but even if it was, look at the response of grace for her to say, I forgive him. That is something, and I think more important than Erica saying she forgives him was she said Charlie would forgive him. I think
Keep those
that is
comments coming.
the end of it. That's the end of it. Because if she's saying, I forgive him, okay, but maybe Charlie wouldn't, right? But she's saying, no, I know him better than anyone, and he would forgive this guy. That was, to me, the most shocking thing I heard the entire time. And I don't know that people really listened to that.
Well, you probably already know that when you hear that sound, there's music on the way. After all, this is kind of a music show. Sit back and enjoy. All the music can be easily found on your favorite digital distribution channels. Turn up the volume and here we go.
This is no game, it's no fairy tale. I stared right into a rifle barrel. It all comes down to this: is he worth it? This is no dream, it's reality.
back with some Charlie Kirk discussion that we've been having here with John Reiser from Daily Theology. He has done several different episodes on this, taking several different angles and slants on this. John, this is a cultural moment in which we will not soon forget. What happens? What happens now?
Well, I think if you look at the church first and your family, number one, the responsibility to disciple, pray for, sing as a family, all those things need to be elevated. When you see the images of this, we talked about the strikingness of the violent images, but I think people are missing it. The image that should stand out the most, you know what image it was, Erskine?
What is that image, John?
Him with his little girl running to him. And the value of family and the responsibility it is to be a father and the love for people around you. That's the message that people should be taking, not the violence. That's the tool of Satan. The love of God, the love of others is the tool of God and God's grace. And that's the image people should remember. And then, so
Which
you've
is
got your
funny because that was one of the thumbnails that I used. The day right after it happened, I did a tribute to Charlie Kirk, and it said something like "Well done," but it was a picture of he with his family. And I think that's the greatest legacy that he left. So
Yeah,
continue,
we're
sir.
all, I mean, remember the missionary, whether I get eaten by worms or whatever, cannibals, my body shall arise as fair in the resurrection as yours. And that's, we're all going to die. I mean, yesterday I was picking up our dog. I couldn't walk. I've been crawling across the floor over here because my back isn't strong enough, and we're all eventually going to fall apart and die somehow. And death is degrading. Now, there is the potential that we could be, Jesus comes back and you don't die, but more than likely we're going to fall apart and die. And it's humiliating. Okay, so come to terms with that. But the reality is,
John,
remember,
for our daily dose of encouragement.
yeah, sorry, it's real. But
I love it.
we don't talk about death enough. People try to sterilize it. Oh, died peacefully. Oh, yes, peacefully died. No, they didn't. The thing is, we have to face it, and we have to know that
No, they
Jesus rose from the dead and conquered death. And remember the things that Charlie did, that he built. He was a father and a husband and, a Christian. And those are the things that we should remember. So family responsibility, then your local church, if you're not connected to an expositional preaching, local, solid church with an actual statement of faith that is actually biblical, that affirms and denies, then you need to be in a church because you need other believers. It's a call for those churches to be bold. It's a call for churches to speak against these things and speak for the gospel. Now, to whatever level a church wants to address or not address political things, I'm not putting people into a box there. But I will say, when something like this happens, I have told you, I think I told you, this is our culture's JFK. This is our generation's JFK or MLK Jr. And again, we're not affirming Martin Luther King Jr. and his lifestyle, all that, but his impact was undeniable. His impact on culture it cannot be denied. But I think Charlie Kirk is that level. 100 million people. I sincerely doubt that 100 million people watched anything related to JFK Jr.
No.
Right?
The technology and the access would not have been as broad.
So the call is
Prove us
join
wrong.
a church. Be committed to that church. Love the church. Serve the church. Don't complain and stay in that church. So that's the other
Or maybe
faithfulness.
complain and stay in the church.
What's that?
Would you say complain and work through it and stay in the church?
Well, I complain a lot, yeah. So if you complain, stay in the church. And you're going to have ups and downs. And then the other thing would be for you personally. What's your responsibility? I can't answer that for you, but as an evangelist, my responsibility is to be bold and to preach the gospel and to teach theology and to preach those types of things and encourage people to start things. And really, for me, it's to pour into people like Ben, you, Jamie, people that are, going to be those leaders that we need, because you cannot focus all your time on complainers and people that aren't ever going to do anything at all.
Yeah.
You got to identify the people that are starting things, but not starting things for their own reasons. Okay, there's a lot of people that want to be internet famous. They want to be wealthy. They want to be thought leaders. If you want to be a thought leader, you're not a thought leader. Okay, if you want to be famous, it's not for the right reasons. If you want to make Jesus famous, then you're onto something. If you want to be kind of obscure, and I've even thought about making my channel with no face, just a voice, but I can't figure out how to make that work. And YouTube's tricky; things are changing and stuff. But
would that
reaching
be
people,
good stewardship, though? I mean, that's
What's
kind of goes into another discussion. But when we're talking about influence and we're talking about how the Lord is going to use our lives for an influence, yeah, maybe. But what's wrong with the image that God has given you, speaking to people through the inflection and the voice? And I think people can pick up a lot through a camera.
Yeah. No, there's nothing wrong with that for sure. But I think different people have different temptations. And if the temptation is to exalt yourself, then he must increase and I must decrease. John the Baptist, greatest person ever lived. Not Moses. Thank you very much. John the Baptist. And that was his message. And so
Have they
whatever
been
that
having a
looks
debate
like,
that you needed to weigh in on?
well, people always think it's Moses. It wasn't Moses. It wasn't Abraham. But the point here is, whatever it is that God has called you to, it might be like you said, think small, it could be just faithfulness to your family. There's this idea that to be a real Christian, you must build some giant structure and climb this giant ladder like Charlie Kirk.
That's what you see on TV.
That's not necessarily good or even healthy. I think he succeeded because that was God's plan, like a Joseph almost.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, the temptation is like, boy, I wish I was getting more people to interact with things and more views and whatever, more people to preach to, more traffic around. I don't know. We just have to be faithful. And if you're trying to be bigger for the sake of being bigger, that's the wrong motive. But I've also heard people say, well, I don't care about numbers. Well, you're an idiot then, because you should.
There it
Okay?
is.
No,
There it
it's true.
is. You're an
People
idiot.
say that. It's the term, the humble brag. The humble
Yeah.
brag.
Uh-huh.
That's the humble brag. I don't care about numbers. Boy, I sure do. That's not accurate. Now, I'm not going to obsess over them. I know I'm not responsible for them. But I definitely want to think, how could we reach more people? And if you're not thinking that way, I would encourage you to just take a step back, right? So even though what I said was, we're not going to build these giant things, God builds those things. It's God that gives the increase. And you have to have that tension, or otherwise you're going to look back one day and you built your kingdom and not God's kingdom. So those would be the three areas.
Yeah. I think that in this discussion, hopefully what we will see is a revival in churches, save people. And in particular, I'm not quite Paul Washer in the sense that I would sit back and when somebody says, what's the greatest danger to the church? Preachers, pastors.
Everyone always says the street evangelists. Erskine, give me just a soapbox here.
Yeah.
Those bad street evangelists, they're giving Jesus a bad name, pushing people away, blah, blah, blah. No one ever complains about the heretical pastors, the terrible sermons, the topical preaching happening that is not exegetical. Nobody complains about
Paul
the
Washer.
false churches on every corner, right? It's always the guy that's trying to reach people getting shot and stuff, and Charlie Kirk was like that. He was in the public square, contending for the faith, and people have the nerve to be like, well, he wasn't real enough. Really? I don't think you put in a real day's work your entire life compared to that guy.
Uh-oh. Shots fired. Oh man, that's probably not a good illustration when we're talking about Charlie
well,
Kirk.
not a good saying maybe. But,
Yeah, sorry. I apologize, YouTube audience. Don't slap my hand. But yeah, so he did in a couple of things that I listened to call out some pastors and probably had more theology in terms of what it was that he was willing to commit to and articulate related to pro-life and some of these massive gospel themes. And I feel like sometimes pastors will swallow the whistle on some of those issues because at the end of the day, somebody may not like them. Somebody may write them a letter. Somebody may look at them weird. Somebody may stop coming to their church. and just a host and a variety of things. And I think if we're handing out idiot awards today, if we're handing out some,
Are we? You brought the awards? I didn't get
well,
one.
I didn't have, no, I
Where's
don't have any
mine?
awards to hand out to the idiots, but I do have a sound bite or something that I could find. Nonetheless,
That's weird.
you're an idiot. You're an idiot pastor if you're not preaching the gospel with clarity. You're an idiot pastor if you're not standing on 10 toes when it relates to pro-life issues. You're an idiot if you're not addressing headlong and with your congregation some of the transgender issues that are just raging. You're an idiot if you can't clearly help and disciple your people to bifurcate what a man and a woman is in our culture and the importance of family. You're an idiot. All right. Awards given to whomever wants to receive one today.
A lot of trophies just went out, I think. Kelly just walks by with all the trophies.
See, that's what happens when you and I. This is actually probably a tamed down discussion that you and I are having. I'm
trying to be gentle here.
I was gonna say I'm trying to be professional today. But nonetheless, some of these things, in case you guys are wondering, John and I, we've been overseas to various countries, at least one that I'm not going to mention the name because I'd like to still get access to that country. And we have been out in the streets, and we have been at the abortion mills, and we've stood on the corner, we've counseled, we've sidewalked, we've preached. And so if you're offended by something that we're saying today in terms of pastors who sometimes will sit in their church and then try to hide behind the office, hide behind the sacred desk and say, well, I got to study, I can't be out there in the streets, I got to study, I can't do evangelism, you might want to miss us, because we've been responding to stuff like this for years. And so when I say, John, I'm hoping that there's a revival in the churches, I'm hoping that there's actually pastors who actually will grow some balls and actually be out doing what it is that God has called them to do, and not hide behind the fact that they want more people to come to their church, or the people are not giving, or all these different metrics that we have in our Western churches that are stopping people from saying and doing the things they ought to be doing. That's what I hope happens in this moment.
Yeah, I think it's hard. I think one of the challenges is what's expected, and this cultural creep of what is a church? What does the church do? How does the church conduct itself?
I'm getting warmed up now.
Is the church ever aggressive or militant? Does it ever confront things? Is it ever disliked? And in our day, if we're being honest, a lot of times churches are the way they are because that's the way they've always been for the past 100 years. And they've, in some ways, become a business. Now, not knowingly by most places per se, but perhaps they would be a little more dangerous if they were not structured the way that they are. And as much as I love expositional preaching, and when we were down there at your place and you let me preach, I love doing that and I'm grateful for it. But is that really the primary call of the pastor? Now, I know, I love it. John MacArthur, great, love him, awesome. Okay, but should that be the primary thing that I'm doing? Or should I spend my time living with, equipping with, reaching out with, doing like food, eating together, praying together, and then preaching, as part of it? Because in the Bible, one of the things, I did a video on this, is expositional preaching blinding you from the actual application of what it is that you're reading. You can go so deep into a text and the culture and the language and the clauses and all of that sort of thing, but at the end of the day, what needs to be done is pretty straightforward, and I wonder how much we're doing that thing.
We have come to the end of this episode. Don't miss a final word from Erskine.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being a part of the Erskine Music Podcast experience. To all of our guests that come on the show, and for all of our sponsors, thank you guys so much for being a part of it. And for you who listen to the show, you and I, we make this thing happen by simply being kind to one another in the comment section, and then going as followers of Christ and living this thing out. If anybody needs more information, erskinemusic.com is where you start, and then all the nonsense starts, all the social media that's out there. But let's go live it out. See you guys very soon.